One of the most common questions I get is, where's my favorite place to go walleye fishing? And my answer is always, I love fishing up and down the Missouri River, all of the reservoirs, but by far my favorite reservoir is Fort Peck. You come out here and this is the wild, wild west. I mean, it's literally miles and miles of shoreline, nobody around, and it's absolutely beautiful. Now, the thing about the area we're fishing today, it's the Hell's Creek area. It is actually even more wild than I've ever seen on Fort Peck. You'll be coming along, you'll see animals on the way out, you can see animals up on the hills here. So we're gonna go out fishing today trying for some walleyes, and I'm fishing with a friend of mine, Jim Muzanowski. Jim and I fished tournaments against each other for many, many years, and he's always said if I get out by Montana, let's hop in the boat and do a little fishing. So we're gonna get out on beautiful Fort Peck, we're gonna fish some main lake points, probably gonna pull some jigs around, and we're gonna show you the next bite.
Just looking for the next bite, next bite, next bite, next bite. Just looking for the next bite. It's the
Following closely behind Lake Sakakawea, Lake Fort Peck in Montana is the 5th largest artificial lake in the United States. Bordering almost the entire reservoir is the near 18,000 square mile Charles M. Russell Wildlife Refuge, preserving much of the surrounding high prairie country in as close to its natural state as possible. With wild animals in abundance on the 25-mile drive into the Hells Creek tributary from Jordan, Montana, fishing Fort Peck is truly fishing the wild, wild west.
Fort Peck is a very interesting place to fish. It's a big body of water. It's over 130 miles long and more shoreline than the Pacific coast, actually. The walleyes in this reservoir have a very big migration. They go all the way west to the end of the reservoir and then even up the river. They do stop in some spots along the way. So in the spring, you want to start fishing west and then work your way back. And how do you know how to work your way back? You like to follow the water temperature. The water temperature drops a couple of degrees. That's about as far as the fish will go until it warms up and it'll work their way down. When the water temperature on the whole reservoir is pretty much the same everywhere you go, you can be sure that the fish have dispersed and you can fish in all the areas.
With Fort Peck having more shoreline than the Pacific coast, knowing what to look for as far as structure is obviously important, but knowing what makes one point better than another can be key to finding higher concentrations of walleyes.
I get the net for you, gladly. I'm here. Oh, that's a good one. That is a nice fish.
It's so strong.
We like strong.
All right, here he comes.
Here he's in.
Yeah, all right. That's a nice one.
There you go.
Oh, man.
Boy, he gobbled up that jig.
Oh, he sure did. Yeah, things are really hitting it hard today.
Look at that fish. Did he hit it hard or just mush on?
He did.
Very nice.
Grabbed it and pow.
Well, it's kind of cool because this little point here, we got a nice drop off on it. I think you're in about 12, 13 feet of water, it looked like.
Yep, so. It was just as it was starting to make that bend down.
Right.
Boom.
Boom is good, man.
Yep.
Boom is good.
Sure is. When I'm looking for a point to fish in late May or early June, I'm looking for a main lake point that has a lot of structure to it. By structure, I mean a stair stepping, make different levels, and then something that extends way out, and the further the better. So there's a lot of different structure for the fish to be on. And when you're fishing that this time of year, I would say you're fishing fairly shallow, 20, 25 feet down to 2 feet. So you want to be sure to check all the different depths when you're working a point. Use your electronics, really pay attention to where you get a bite, and that's going to help show you exactly what the depth is that the fish are favoring that particular day. So let's say now they're in 10 feet, you have a big point, so now you can narrow it down and just work that 10-foot area. Don't be afraid to pitch right into shore, even though you're catching some in 10 feet, some may moved up shallow, and take a pass or two a little deeper.
The next bite is brought to you by Mercury, #1 on the water. Amsoil, performance for serious adventure. Tracker Boats, fish the finest. Bass Pro Shops, your adventure starts here. Berkeley, catch more fish. And Motor Guide, trolling motors engineered for anglers. Closed captioning for the next bite is provided by Power Pole, the ultimate in shallow water anchors. Walleyes are opportunistic predators. They will eat just about any fish that they can catch.
So this is a Cisco. This is probably the main forage for walleyes in this in Fort Peck here. Very oily fish, very high protein, so this is what makes them grow big and fat. So when a walleye is swimming along, he sees a Cisco and he smells the Cisco. I'm gonna eat the Cisco.
Keith and Jim aren't using baits quite the size of Cisco's, but they are sticking with profiles and colors that are conducive to their known forage as they jig the shoreline points west of the Hell Creek's tributary of the Fort Peck Reservoir.
Oh, I got one!
While they are targeting shallower depths on and around the points, the points themselves can extend out quite deep.
Kind of surprised me.
Oh, there he is.
Here he is.
Oh, I got him.
Good
He's
job.
off. He's off already.
Wow.
Hey, look at here. Look at here. I see something sticking out of his mouth. Must be a Cisco?
It's going to be a Cisco.
Look at here.
And that's an aggressive fish.
He's been eating.
Got a big Cisco in his mouth, and he still hit the jig.
I wonder if we can slide that out and take a look at it. You might have it too far down, but maybe not. Oh, here it comes. So that's how big a Cisco can be.
11-inch, 10-inch Cisco there.
In a 20-inch walleye and a 11-inch Cisco. So that just tells you maybe we're using too small of baits or something. He's like, hey, what'd you take my dinner out for?
You want it back? There he goes.
So let me talk a little bit about the equipment that we're using for the jigging out here. And we're going to use the same equipment whether we're using it for dragging the jigs or pitching the jigs. I like to use a 6-foot medium light rod. The reason we go with medium light is because you're going to use a no stretch line, and therefore when you set that hook and have to start fighting that fish, you're going to want to have some flex in that rod to take up that shock absorption. Now as far as the main line that I'm going to fish with, I like a no stretch line, so either fire line or I'm using nano, probably an 8-pound test fire line or 10-pound test nano. And then because the water's fairly clear here, you're going to want to look at using a leader. I'm using fluorocarbon leaders. I like 10-pound test. Jim goes all the way up to a 15-pound test, and that's mainly because Fort Peck does have a lot of big northerns in it, and it might prevent some of those bite offs. But that fluorocarbon, very, very good in this clearer water that you have here in the reservoir. And as far as a jig, what you're going to want to use is a 1/4 ounce or probably even a 3/8 ounce, especially if it's a little windier. Go to that heavier one. I'm mainly using a semi-stand-up jig like this with a 3-inch gulp minnow has been my best. As far as what Jim has been using, he's got this kind of a specialty built one here. Some of the guides he goes with, the Keeblers, build this jig, and it's got a little spinner on the bottom. But basically green and white, pink and white have all been very good. Jim's been tipping with a real minnow. So if you take and get a medium light 6-foot rod, some no stretch lines, some 1/4 ounce jigs, pitch them out there or drag them, you're going to catch some walleyes here on Fort Peck.
Yeah, he just kind of, as you came around that inside deal there, he just boonk.
Oh yeah. Looks like a dandy.
There we go. All right. That's a good one.
Yeah.
Okay, you were just coming around that corner. My lines were kind of just sitting down straight, and I lifted up and a little, oh, geez,
Just coming up that little hump. Yep. Perfect.
Coming off the side of that point. It's a nice healthy fish there. Holy man, look at there. Chunker. Mm-hmm. That's a good fish, and he gobbled up that bait. Just absolutely pounded it. Nice fish. But yeah, you were coming around the edge of that point. We kind of fell off, and I was on the inside corner, and I was just kind of jiggling my jig a little.
Working up that point.
Boom. We like them when they do that.
Exactly.
The Real Deal, real fishing information from real fishing experts, presented by AmSoil.
One of the things that you can do with these Lowrance Gen 3 units, actually the Gen 2s as well, is export your waypoints by region. And I really think that's a pretty cool feature because let's just say, for instance, I have Devil's Lake on right here, and I only want to carry one SD card for all the Devil's Lake trips that I make from year to year. But one of the things you want to keep in mind with these new Gen 3s is that they're micro SD compatible. The older units, you could always put an SD card on. So now with these new units, the Gen 3s, we're going to go micro SD. I'm going to simply insert the card in the slot. And then the steps are very simple to make sure I'm getting my waypoints onto that chip. I'm going to go into the pages here. I'm going to click on Files, Waypoints, Routes, Trails. I'm going to see that there's 361 waypoints on the graph. And like I said, one of the things I like to do, one chip for one body of water. So it's very simple for me to go back year to year. So 361 waypoints, what I want to do is I'm actually going to export by region. So I only get those waypoints from Devil's Lake. We're going to put all those waypoints in the box simply by just scanning the box around it. Export. And I'm going to export in version 5 because this is a new Gen 3 unit. If you're coming from older units, make sure you do some research as to what version you need to export in, but export in version 5, memory card on the right, and then I can name it whatever I want. Maybe because those waypoints are from 2015, I'm going to go CP 2015, enter, and boom, they're all saved, just those waypoints. So now, if I go back in 2017 to Devil's Lake, I'm gonna have only those waypoints, not 1,500, not 2,000 waypoints. And it's very simple, a very simple process to get the waypoints on those micro SD cards, and you can make sure that you're on fish from year to year on the same body of water.
So the technique we're using today is something I've always called it jig trolling. You know, some people call it vertical jigging or whatever, but what basically we're trying to do is just slowly work along a particular depth, holding the boat like in 10 feet or maybe out in 14 feet, working that depth over, watching our depth finder, making sure we're still marking fish, but we're actually covering that with like 4 different rods. Now, the nice thing is Jim can sit up in front there, and what he's doing is just a little popping of the jigs, hopping the jigs as we come along here. So he's covering a couple depths there. A lot of times I'll run right down the middle with a couple rods, or I'll take and cast a rod in shallow. So we can be covering a lot of different depths, even though the boat is only in one particular depth. Now, the thing about when you're fishing like this, especially if you're fishing behind a really good fisherman like Jim, the person in the back has got to do something different. They can actually contact the fish first. They're going to be dragging their jigs by the fish first. So a lot of times they're going to pick off, you know, the most active fish, or the fish that want to see a jig in a minnow, let's say. So back here, you've a lot of times got to do something different. Maybe put on a light jig and throw it a little further back, or maybe put on, you know, like I've been putting on a gulp tail or a power bait tail or something, just something to give them something different, so that if they come by and don't like what Jim's presenting, I give them something else, and that might actually trigger them. So jig trolling is a really super effective way to fish. The cool thing is you can cover the depth the boat is in, but you can also cover other depths by, say, casting or throwing a jig way out behind the boat. Nice one.
Yeah, this is a nice fish.
Well, then I'll
it's
get
a real
the net.
nice fish. I think you want to grab the net here.
Hey, that's the way you do it, Jim. I just tell them how to do it, and then you catch one. Nothing to it, right?
Nothing to it.
There we go.
There we go.
And he's off.
Oh man, it's a nice fish.
It's just like I said, you just, you know, the boat covers one depth, you know, you're running by them, and this is a good little example of how you do it. Just pull a jig by them and they bite.
That's right. It's just that easy.
Right on cue, right?
Yep.
All right, we're gonna let this is a movie star, this is a superstar, we're gonna let it go back. All right, here you go. Thank you for making the tip complete. So let me talk a little bit about the jigging action that we're using, and actually it's two different ones. If you watch Jim at all, what he's doing is kind of popping his rod a little bit forward, then quickly giving it slack line. And so what that's making that jig do is hop ahead, then flutter down. Hop ahead, then flutter down. It's probably only moving 6 or 8 inches on the bottom, and probably only coming off the bottom maybe 2 or 3 inches. I'm doing something a little bit different. I'm lifting, I'm pausing, then I'm slowly dropping my rod tips down. What that's making that jig do is hop off the bottom, swim a little, and then flutter down. So 2 a little bit different actions. The key is when you're doing them, if you feel any kind of weight, mushiness, a tick, or your line just starts to pull, set the hook. That's a walleye. You got what you want.
The next bite is brought to you by Mercury, #1 on the water. Amsoil, performance for serious adventure. Tracker boats, fish the finest. Bass Pro Shops, your adventure starts here. Berkeley, catch more fish. Mustad, stay sharper longer. Lowrance, find, navigate, dominate. Motor Guide trolling motors engineered for anglers. Strike King, legacy of domination for 50 years. And Power Pole, swift, silent, secure. Topics, leading information, and tackle and techniques to make you a better angler. Presented by Mercury.
Overall, I'd say most people keep their boats and motors for a long time. There are some recommendations that you're going to want to follow if you do that. One is keep everything out of the direct sunlight. So if you have to store your rig outside, make sure the engine and the boat's covered. Direct sunlight can harm the cowlings, and it can really raise havoc on the rig as a whole. So again, direct sunlight's not good. With cowlings, you want to start with a wet surface if you can. Rinse off your motor, or at least use a bucket of water and get it moist, so that when you go into the washing process, there's no sand and grit on that could scratch the cowling. So you want to start the process with keeping it moist. Then when you do use in the soapy solution, you essentially want to use a non-abrasive product. There's a lot of marine washes that are out there. Any of them are really good. Just wash your engine down, keep it nice and clean that way, but then rinse it off when you're done, or use water and wipe the soap off, and essentially then use a dry towel, and I'd recommend a microfiber towel or a real soft cloth to completely dry the engine. Now there's a little tip that I learned from the tournament guys. There's some guys who have such clean rigs, and rigs that look so new that you could literally eat a dinner off the engine cowling. They're so clean. How do they do it? They get into the habit and the routine of cleaning their rigs every time they leave the water. There's some marine products that are out there, and there's many of them that work well, that you can actually spray the engine and the boat down and wipe it off as soon as you get off the water. What happens is if you get into that routine, and especially if you fish a lot, it'll build up a nice protective layer on both your engine cowlings and on the boat itself. If you're going to keep your boat for a long time, use these tips to basically help the process and keep your stuff looking new and keep it looking clean.
Keith and Jim are using 2 different techniques to not only cover different depths, but also give the walleyes more options as they pick apart the staircase-shaped points of Lake Fort Peck, Montana. While combining gulp minnows with stand-up head jigs isn't a secret by any means.
It's a 10-pounder. Easy 10. Got to be all of 10 pounds. It's a nice one. I angled it. It's on a secret lure. I can't let you see its prototype lure.
It has helped give Keith something a little different in his presentation as he switches between casting and vertical jigging in the back of the boat, while Jim jig trolls with live minnows from the bow. And when you can, it never hurts to run scent-impregnated artificials when dealing with such a high volume of bites in terms of efficiency.
Jim, this one feels good.
All right.
This feels like a decent one here, and he just thumped it.
All right.
Grab the net there. There he is.
Oh,
yeah,
it's
he's
a
a good one,
dandy.
isn't it?
There
he
he goes.
goes.
Big one. Whoa.
Come on around here. Come on. I ain't making no headway on him.
Boy, oh boy. You know, there's so much bait fish in this lake right now, and they just are so fat.
Why don't you extend that net just a little? You just flip it over, and then there's that button right there. All right, here he comes, Jim. Grab him. Get him.
Oh, yeah.
Nice fish. Oh, man. And he just throttled that jig, too.
Oh, he did.
I had a little gulp minnow on there. It's still there. Little gulp
Nice.
minnow. Big Montana. Wow.
Oh, wow.
Is that a nice fish?
Look at the color on that. Isn't that a pretty fish?
Beautiful fish. Beautiful.
Nice job.
I mean, and healthy. I mean, just chunky. I mean, they got to be eating really good in here.
Oh, there are so many Cisco's in here right now. It's unbelievable, and that's what these bigger ones are eating.
Well, that's a big one. I'm loving it, Jim. I'm loving it.
All right.
Let's get him back in the water. Well, James,
Well, it was a great trip.
wild good fun in the wild, wild west. It's kind of like sushi, only it's a little scalier.
I want to try to go through. Okay, I'm hesitating too much. Okay, boats. Okay, got it. Rules of thumbs. Okay, all right. That's stupid. Okay, I know how I want to get into it. Okay. Can dance on the hood and really make it look cool. Not even good to say. Okay.
Bass? I only catch the little bass. Jim gets the big bit.
I mean, I definitely have to poop.
If you're okay.
The Next Bite would like to thank Montana Walleye guide Captain Jim Muzanowski. For more information on Jim and his guide service, visit www.montanawalleye.com.